Welcome to another episode of Pointless Discourse. This week we have something a little bit different planned. I know we usually talk about, our top tier and worst tier things, but this was one of our little charity goal things that we had been making announcements for, but we realized that we did not have the Twitter DMs open on our Twitter account. We thought it was a default thing, and this whole time we were like, no one's sending us in stuff. So when we realized that, there wasn't enough time to people get questions to us. So what we chose to do for the kind of the community episode is instead we're going to kind of interview each other and look into our personalities to see, or for a way for you guys to still get to know us, even though no one got a chance to submit questions.
Yes.
And then I think this is our first episode in a while without any special announcements.
Yeah. I also like to imagine someone opens this if they listen to other episodes and are like, oh man, they're gonna list off their best and worst traits ranked by themselves. It's just like, oh man, this is gonna be a doozy. It's the end of the okay. If we know there's an end of the podcast, that's what we should do. But for ourselves, so that way we can still be friends. We're like, what is our favorite and least favorite traits about ourselves?
That would definitely be a doozy. And it would also be interesting to see if people reply oh, I also feel that way about myself. It's nice, I'm not alone.
Or they're like, yeah, I totally see that in you. And it's like, oh.
Crisis.
What's that Hillary Duff Rain song? I forget. There's a bunch of songs that are in the rain. Anywho. So yeah, I don't have announcements, and Hop said all that we have, so we get to roll our die. I guess just to let people know how this is going to work before we get into it, is that Hop and I both wrote 3 questions, and we are going to ask those questions. I figure we'll do one, you, if you go first, you ask your first question, I'll ask my first question, go that way. Kind of like how we do our normal shindig. And so I guess the question that we didn't figure out is initiative, whoever wins initiative, are they going to ask the first question, or do they have to answer the first question?
I would go with ask, since it's kind of kicking off a topic. Too. Yeah.
Okay. And yes, for anyone that's coming in right now, and I feel like this is always good just to repeat at the start, since we do record this live, and then we will be putting this up on an audio format later. We might not be able to interact with chat as much as we normally do or normal stream, but yeah, we are learning about we're going to ask each other 3 questions. We don't even know the questions. At least I don't. If Hop learned my questions, I would ask, how did she get on my phone? But she's programming, so who knows? A live studio audience that sits at home.
Watches us through their computer screens.
All right, I rolled. I got a natural 9.
I got 10.
Okay, wow, we're going to base these episodes off of our dice rolls. Guys, this is going to be a real average episode. I hope you're ready for it.
Buckle in. Okay, so then I'll ask you my first question that I have prepared.
I'm going to throw up. I'm just joking. Why DPayne's never been in a review.
Where did the inspiration for Pizza King come from?
Okay, so I guess a good explanation, to let people know if they've never seen my stream. Pizza King is lore-wise a pizza face bearded thing that's from another dimension that is a ruler of the Pizzaverse, and DPayne, me, opened up a portal and we asked him questions and other things. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever said this live or recorded before. But it actually started off with me looking at my stream stuff, and I was like, man, it'd be cool if I could have like. Okay, so it actually started off. Now that I'm remembering, there's a channel that I watch. He's actually a streamer on here as well, whose name I am completely forgetting, but it's like um, Rob, I think his name is. If you give me a few seconds, I could look it up real quick. But he did this live action thing where he would excuse me, go and like have D&D, and then we'd have like these puppets come on for the thing. Okay, hold on. This is gonna bother me. Let me look up who he is real quick. I can find it right here. His name is. All right. Well, Rob. What is your Twitch channel, buddy? Rob TV. Yeah. So Rob, RAWB. People might know him because he was part of the Minecraft group and did a lot of things with Good and all them before they kind of split up. But he did this he made his own like D&D game. He had these characters come in like they were like puppets, but they were all like kind of digital puppets, and I was like, man, that's really cool. And he actually let the program be used for free, and it's like, yeah, if you want. And I was like, I had no clue what I was doing. So I'm like, man, what if I could just make something where originally it was, yeah, Old Man Willikers. Thank you. I knew he had a different name, but Old Man Willikers was one of his older names that people might know, where my eyes and mouth could line up with a pizza face, like with a pizza, and then that could be like this voice that just comes and talks. And as it went through and I thought about it more, I'm like, what if he's a pizza king and he's just a jerk? And like Pizza King actually is a nickname that we gave this guy at work who when we had pizza at work, he would come out and eat a whole pie by himself. So I was like, oh man, Pizza King's good. And so it turned into, and then the guy that does all the art for my channel, I was like, hey, I want to do this. Do you think this is possible? And he's like, yeah. And so we made it, and then we found out that my eyes didn't line up with the mouth, and so that's why like I found two swirly like rainbow gifts for eyes and all that. And so that was like kind of the idea of the design behind him. And the whole purpose of Pizza King originally was he came out when like people were trolls and would insult them, but people liked it because it was just this pizza man just calling them like idiots and stuff. And then it just morphed into becoming like kind of a, now he wouldn't like me calling him a mascot, but he's a mascot of the channel now. There's like a whole bunch of like other lore that is tied with Pizza King. Like there's other pizza characters that never saw the light of day that we have art for, but we never were able to use or bring out or do that because I don't know, it never worked out. Like he has an arch nemesis called Emperor Tart, which is a Pop Tart. The only other character that really saw the light of day was Pizza Cat, which he hates. And so but yeah, that's kind of what Pizza King is he's just there to, and now he knights people when people subscribe, and he just does all the fantastical stuff of the stream, and then he's like, okay, I'm done, go back to DPayne. Which I was called a court jester by him. So yeah, that's kind of the thought and I guess the mini story of Pizza King. And so I don't know if did I answer it well?
I mean, yeah.
That's gonna be how we end, probably. Well, how I will end all my questions. Did I answer this? Did
I cover it?
Did I do okay, Teach? So, yeah, that's Pizza King. All right. So, sorry, something popped up on my phone, but now I got rid of it. And so my first question is, what is the story behind the name Hoppocalypse?
Okay, I think I might have talked about this on stream a few times. Like, especially when people come and they're like, is it about beer? Is it Hoppocalypse? Is it? I'm
I
like,
hear that side of it, but I'm like, I don't think I ever heard the origins of it, which is why it's written. So.
yeah. So basically, for anyone who has been able to stop by, either like, I think almost all my branding, I think I have some form of rabbits in it, and it's one because I enjoy rabbits. Two, I have 3 pet rabbits, and I remember this name. I've had it for a very long time. I was trying to figure out a username for anyone who's had an Xbox. You know that you get a free name change, but after that it costs I think like $10 unless they have some special event. So I was like thinking real hard. I was like, I can't have a bad first name. I want a name that I like that I'm going to stick with. So I had trouble thinking of stuff, and I decided that I wanted to do something that was a pun on rabbits, but I couldn't think of a pun with rabbits that didn't sound like I was a Playboy bunny girl. So I was sitting there and I was like brainstorming, and I was like writing down all these names, and I remember I was in one of the labs in my college and I was just stuck. So Strider was like, here, I have a friend who's great with like puns and goofy names and stuff. I'll reach out to him. And he came up with 2. One was Bunzerker and the other one was Hoppocalypse. And Bunzerker I was closely considering, but I was like, people might think that I just like butts. I don't want that to be what they think of me about. So then I went with Hoppocalypse. And what's interesting is it's kind of like a blessing in disguise. When I first tried to take the name, I only wanted it with 1 P. But I think that would have confused people more because they would definitely, I think it was like Hoppocalypse. But so then I ended up having 2 P's in the name. So now I can tell people it's Apocalypse, but instead of the A, it's an H. And now I just shorten it to say that if you want to pronounce it, you can either call me Hop, because it is kind of like the first syllable, or you can call me, or say Apocalypse and just put the H sound in front.
I remember when I first came into your channel, you told me that as well, and no, when you, I think it was the first time you came here, and I was like, oh no, I actually have to say your name out loud now. And like, I think you wrote pretty much what you just said there, and I'm like,
It is interesting how many people seem to struggle with it, and I also have a lot of ways, like someone in the chat right now, the live studio audience, brought up that I used to on Mixer have a like a scrolling list of names on the bottom of my stream that some other streamer gave me the idea for, and it was all the ways that my names have been said wrong. And
I remember that, yeah.
a lot of them were like Hippocalypse, Hip Hop Anonymous, Hoppocalypso. Like, I would get such a large variety, and for some reason, I don't know if it's just because I thought of the name, I never thought it'd be that hard to say, but it is really entertaining. But at this point, I have so many nicknames. Some people call me Hop, some people call me Hoppo, some people call me Hoppy, and some people just like call me my full thing. I used to have a soundboard kind of thing where it would play the Flight of the Conchords just saying hip hop, or no.
Hip hop upon was popping off like phosphorus.
Yes. And then I had a gif of them from the music video.
You know, it'd be like, this is my brain immediately thought, just if you still have all those names written down, it's like you have your nicknames that you have now, and then all the other ones just put it as a t-shirt and they just line down. And
then finally it's Hop.
Yeah. On the back, Hop.
That's actually a pretty solid t-shirt idea.
It's just like all the different mispronunciations, and then like whatever the 3 dots are, and then the next line, Hop.
Yeah, I remember my first experience of having the name said so absurdly wrong that I thought it was the greatest thing ever was Sea of Thieves. They had an event that required more than 4 people, so you had to like voice chat and talk with other people to trigger this event. Okay. And I got knocked off the boat. I think it was the first like major Megalodon event. I got knocked off the boat, and this guy, like, he had an accent, so I don't think his first language was English, and he went like, hip hop calypso, no, don't drown. And all of us in my Xbox party were like, hip hop calypso.
Look, if you ever need to rebrand, that is an excellent name as well. It's your stage name when you go out and do like DJ work, and it's hip hop calypso, yo.
Yeah, but no, the overall origin was just I just wanted some kind of rabbit pun. But oddly enough, here's the fun fact: I tried to take the same name on PlayStation Network, and it's banned. So I think
Interesting.
the word hop was banned.
Oh.
So like having Hoppocalypse, and I was just like, what if I just put hop? And they're like, this is an indecent word. So Strider helped me come up with one. If you see Monty Python and the Holy Grail, I forget the exact name of the bog where you find the white rabbit, but the my PlayStation username is like Carbonog because it's because it has bun in the middle, and then it's a play off of that name of that area.
That's fun. all your all your names are now bunny bunny linked.
As much as I can help it, and it was also really helpful that I happened to pick a username that I liked that seems to have not been taken anywhere else. Like I remember when everyone was starting to move over to Twitch because of everything happening, and they were like, "You're lucky you got your username." I was like, "I'd be surprised if I couldn't."
Yeah. Yeah. I'm username wasn't taken. Well, it was by me. So, yeah. All right. I think that fully answers my question and more.
Nice, I did it.
Yes. Mark off the checkbox. Ding.
All right. So my next question for you is: how much planning goes into events like Charity Palooza for you?
A lot. um. So normally it's Charity Palooza. So okay, for people who don't know what Charity Palooza is, uh, which is the reason it was actually last week, which is why we recorded on a Tuesday. Um, it's an all-day event where I pretty much stream all day. Like we streamed for 15 hours last week, to raise money, for treatment, to help people, pay off their cancer bills. Um, but yeah, that starts. I start thinking about what I want to do. Maybe, and it's not like heavy thinking. It's mainly like just like, okay, yeah, this is coming up. Let's start thinking what I want to focus on. Start getting the gears going. Maybe 2 to 3 months in advance. And then it's more just kind of stray thoughts. I'm like, okay, this is coming, like just to keep it in my mind. And then a lot of the heavy planning starts happening a month in advance, where um, I find the date. I'm like, okay, this is coming up. What do I want to do different from last year? Um, is there any kind of games? And I look at everything that's going on in like for my channel, and it's like honestly for my channel the big things, I'm like, okay, what are the big things that I could do that are part of my channel that like I know people would come and take part in. TFT was definitely one. From the other charity stream that we had back in April, uh, for To Write Love in Our Arms, I unlocked a battle royale stream. I'm like, okay, well here I can kill two birds with one stone, and it's like I can fill this time slot with this, and I also know there a lot of people like BR games, and so um, we did that, like, and so it was kind of finding the different things in there, and then kind of 2 to 3 weeks out, I reach out to, I think this time it was only 2 weeks out, I can't remember, when I when I asked people like, hey, would anyone be interested in joining? Like I know I asked you, mainly I think I asked you pretty early because we already had to switch the day, but then I'm like, would you like to take part in the TFT thing? And thankfully you said yes. um, and so we did that, and then it's like I know I put it into um, a stream team I'm part of, and then I put it in the charity group, which which we that was put in there, and then I reached out to like a few individuals that I know that I'd done stuff, but they're not in any of those groups, and saying like, hey, are you guys interested in joining? And no pressure, yes or no, and yeah, from there, and then pretty much the last 2 weeks is just me fine tuning everything, where it's just like, okay, we're gonna be playing this game, this is the schedule, what are the, and like that last month is also when I'm writing up like all the different goals as well, like um, what's going to happen at each mark, what are you guys going to unlock, what's going to happen, um, and just different things. Honestly, uh, there one of the things that happened, like it's one of the things that I realized in doing charity streams is that there has to be flexibility. So where there's people, like there's definitely the goals and stuff that happened in there. Um, like the idea of the nori brick was something that just happened. Which, if people don't know what the nori brick is, pretty much people would donate money. It was a secret amount, which turns out wasn't all that secret. It was $20. And I would eat a whole sheet of nori because I didn't have anything left to do with this. So I would eat it and it would become a brick, and I don't know what happened to it afterwards. So, but yeah, it's stuff like that where you can plan for a whole lot of different things, but when you go live, you need to have that flexibility, especially if you're going to go in for a full day. Like if it's just a 1 day event. Um, like for example, the Paladins one, I had two kind of like things that people could donate for, which was um, you could choose my champion or make me not alt. Well, as we went on, I know that one of the guys, Old Man Wiser, he was saying like, "Hey, I'll sing a song for whatever amount people want," and I'm like, "Oh, did you have an amount? I'll write it down." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't think that far," and it was his first charity stream, and I'm like, "Okay, here, I'll put it down for $10. I can't alt, and you guys can have him sing a song." And so that was something that was added. The Nori brick was something that was also spur of the moment of the day. The TFT one, that was kind of pretty set. Like it was, there were a few suggestions, but it was going to be very difficult. Um, and that's just kind of, it was kind of what it was, where um, it was a coming together of multiple different things. Like, I don't know. That's one of the things I really liked about the Charity Palooza, that it's not just me. Like if it's just me, we wouldn't like really make all that much. But it's like multiple communities coming together, and even though it's all on one page, it's multiple communities coming together. And I think that's, I don't know, that's what I like about charity streams personally, is just seeing multiple groups come together to help people who need it.
Yeah,
So,
makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like you pretty much have a system down. How many Charity Paloozas have you had now?
two. This is the second one.
Oh, did you plan the first one as well, or did you learn from
Yep.
the first one? Okay.
I planned the first one. First one was about, it was kind of the same format, so there wasn't a lot of stuff. But since it was the first one I did, it's just stuff I had to do um, in advance. Like just, okay, what do I want to do? And it was a lot more of the thinking and planning and how would it look. Um, However, I did have um, the benefit, even though there was a stream team I was part of that I, I I don't have a lot of good things to say about it. Um, but when I was in there, I one of the things I did learn was, like, just by observing, was how they set up charity events, and what I saw, what I liked and what I didn't like, and it kind of gave me a good mindset of how I want to build Charity Palooza. And honestly, like, I know where I would like to see it go, but it's just honestly where I would like it to become in like 3 4 years, 5 years, whatever it takes. It's still like this groundwork where it's got to build up a little bit. So right now we're in the building stage, and we're still having a lot of fun, and still able to help a lot of people. Like, I don't know, this year it just surprised me because we had the vice president of the charity come into my stream and
Wow.
was like, and hung out for a little while, and I didn't even know, like, that wasn't planned. He just came in, and I'll be honest, I didn't know who he was. I only knew they have a Twitch page because they um they also stream and raise money for that as well. And I would have not have recognized him if he came in on any other thing, but he came in with that, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I was like, that was a surprise, and I'm like dying in Call of Duty. like we're doing this for charity. I'm dead. So yeah, there's been some really neat things.
Nice.
I need a swig of water. Otherwise, I'm gonna sound like Hop after Steins Gate. Hey, how you doing? Time. Okay. So my second question is, I remember, and actually you mentioned before that you have bunnies and you love bunnies, and I also remember in the past streams that we've done, you mentioned that you did like volunteer work with animals and all that. If that's even the right way of putting it. So I was wondering, how did the interest and like that become a passion of, I guess, animal, like, because it's not like you just go and you're like, oh, well, I guess you also do this at some point. It's like, oh, pet, and you just go and interact with pets, but it's like you go and maybe you can even explain a little bit more of like kind of the volunteer work you did, because I'm not doing it justice. And but like I know that you helped and worked with a lot of different animals. And then the second part of this question is, how did bunnies get to the top of the animal list, or is there a secret animal that we don't know of?
All right, so I'll start off with I guess just animals in general for me, because I guess that's a good starting point. I've always just really liked animals, and I've always felt comfortable around animals, and I really liked them. But growing up, I didn't really get to have any pets. Forget who, but at least multiple members of my family, I think, were allergic to different pets. And that I was also fairly young, and both my parents were busy, so they were like, we're not going to get a pet. You can't take care of it on your own, and we're not going to be able to help you. In hindsight, like, as a kid, like, you're like, oh, that sucks. But as an adult, I appreciate that they didn't just, like, give me a puppy, and when I was too young to understand how to properly, really take care of a puppy. But yeah, so, like, I think that was, like, the start of me just really wanting, like, I used to just, you watch Saturday morning cartoons. Afterwards, you go off and maybe, like, play outside or do sports. I would watch Animal Channel. So I have, like, a really weird, large amount of knowledge about random animal facts. Like, DPayne, how many vertebrae do you think are in a giraffe's neck?
Too many.
7, the same as humans.
No.
They're just gigantic. No, but it's just, like, animals have always just been a passion of mine. I didn't really have pets to call my own, I think, until, when was it exactly? I think it was either late into high school or early, I think more like early college, that Strider ended up, like, taking on the rabbit as kind of like his pet, so that it became kind of our pet. And I got, he was the first pet that I would, or actually, no, I'm lying a little bit. When I was a kid, my parents did give me very, like, kind of like hands-off pets. Like, I would have fish, hermit crabs. The only real hands-on pets that I would have were things like, I think I had parakeets at one point that I, like, they used to just hang out on my shoulders and hang out with me, and we got really close with each other. But I didn't have anything, like, I didn't have a furry pet, I guess I would say. Like, I didn't grow up with cats or dogs or anything. And then after those parakeets, I think I was a young teenager. Then I got the first pet to call my own after that was the rabbit. Old man Bun, who's like 9 or 10 now. So if you do backwards math, like, we've had him for a very long time and taken care of him for a very long time. And it was one of those things where, I guess I'm answering your second question first. I didn't,
It's all good.
I didn't consider rabbits as, like, a pet of choice. But then once I got to know and actually got to work with him as a pet, I just fell in love with his personality and how he acted as a pet. And I also have, like, mild skin allergies to certain breeds of cats and dogs, but I haven't had any reactions to the rabbit. So I think it was just, like, that nice balance of, like, I have something that wants my attention 24/7 but does not make me itch and sneeze. But I will forego that. If somebody else has a pet, I will risk it and pet them a lot and then try and wash my hands afterwards so that I don't have a terrible reaction.
No.
But yeah, so just my early experiences of having him as a pet made me just like really love rabbits. And then I adopted the 2 more rabbits last summer. And we're still working with them to get them to be socialized, but they have hilarious personalities and are completely different than the one that I have. And then as far as my volunteering stuff was, that came about because I had gone to like a petting zoo kind of themed birthday party for one of my nephews, and me and a goat became best friends in a way that the goat was like hated all the kids at the party because, you know, kids at a certain age, they just like to run around and scream and be loud and think it's funny when like things are angry. So they would kind of like mess with this one goat. So I went over to the goat, and that everyone thought was mean, thought would headbutt you and bite you. I like hung out with him, and then he like would put his head in my lap and just sit next to me in the sun. And people were like, "You good, Hop? You need anything?" I was like, "I have goat friend. I made a new friend today." And like, it's another one of those things where I had never actually gotten to know farm animals at all, but like just how nice this goat was, I enjoyed it. And then from there I found that there was another kind of petting zoo thing in another part of in another city. And when I went there, I happened to ask if they had volunteer opportunities, and they did, where they essentially were like, they were part petting zoo, but they were mainly rescue farm animals. So they would, you know, they would get animals to be able to use for like kids' parties, to be able to earn some revenue. But for the most part, like in the back, they had these 2 giant cows that were not allowed near people because they literally weighed like a ton. They're I forget their breed off the top of my head. It's like, it was a Scottish type of cow. So that if you've seen cows that are kind of like a reddish brown and really floofy and really fluffy, and they have big horns, they had 2 of those. One of them was a very nice cow. The other one, not so nice. But the one that was really nice, the one lady, she let me go out there and pet it. Longest tongue ever, and wanted to lick my face. Fun fact, cow tongues are like cat tongues. So I would just end up red wherever the cow licked me.
I don't know what a cat tongue is like, so I'm super allergic to cats. So it's just like I don't interact with them.
Cat tongues are like the hard part of Velcro. They have little hooks on them, so that's why they groom themselves constantly like they do. So they like, yeah, they're like sandpaper as well, so they're just constantly like able to pull their fur off. So just imagine that, but very large. So it was a very friendly cow. And the lady did warn me. She was like, just watch your feet for where she puts her feet, because your foot will break if she accidentally steps on you. But yeah, in that volunteering, I essentially did was, I told them I had previous experience with rabbits, so I did a lot of like cleaning and working with the rabbits' habitats and like picking them up and checking on them. I also did a lot of like cleaning out the barns and stuff, and by cleaning out the barns and stuff, it would mean I just hung out with like baby cows and sheep and goats all day. There was one cow in particular that I may or may not have spoiled, because if I stopped petting him, he would headbutt me, and then I would turn around and pet him for 10 minutes, and then I would continue. I would go back to like picking up all the poop, then he would headbutt me, and I would stop what I was doing. But I also kind of, he did. I also took it as kind of an opportunity where people would come up and like ask to pet the cow, and like, you know, all these kids are excited, they want to see cows and pigs, so it would help bring them to like where the people were, and then kind of like talk to them about the animals and things. I also learned a trick from volunteering there where I kind of showed it off at a different petting zoo, but if you pet a pig in a certain way, they will always roll over and show you their tummy, and pigs love getting their tummies rubbed. I had learned this so well that I went to a different petting zoo for one of my nephew's parties again, and someone thought I worked there because of how it was like working with the animals and how the pigs and stuff just like seemed to be comfortable around me. I was like, oh no, I'm just here to pet animals. I don't work here.
I don't know anybody here.
But yeah, so other than that, I've worked mainly with like barnyard animals. They had one pig that unfortunately passed away while I was volunteering there, but he was incredibly smart. If you yelled his name, he would show up from anywhere. It didn't matter what he was doing. He always got excited, because usually if people said his name, he got food.
I'd be excited that way too.
He was adorable. If he heard people and he couldn't see you, he would run up to like whatever door was nearby and like push against it to get your attention, to let you know he was there. Let me think. They had emus. I got to pet an emu. Never thought I would say that in my life, but they had a few that were not completely awful. They were very nosy and in your face, and we were scared of them at first. And the lady came by and was like, "Oh, they're actually really nice, and they've been, raised by people. You just have to scratch them a certain way and never stand behind them in case they kick you if they can't see you."
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the one that used to be up in my face, he would just come over and I would like give him some scratches, and then he'd be on his way and stop bothering me. I also hung out with an iguana for a little while. I used to vacuum out his enclosure, and one time she asked me to help like bathe him, and he enjoyed it so much he did like a little iguana head bob and like a little dance. But then the lady was like, "Yeah, when you're done, pick him up." This creature is like super long, like probably like 4 or 5 feet long from head to tail, and that's probably as tall as me. And I was like, "I'm not picking this up. I'm just gonna wait for you to get back, ma'am."
It's like I'm just imagining you picking the iguana up, and then it's like the same size as like someone picking up and carrying a body pillow. Like, get over here.
Yeah. They used to ask me to work with chickens a lot because they apparently chickens, if you let them, they'll attach themselves strongly to one person and then like be very mad and angry at anybody else and get territorial. So they had volunteers constantly like, if you have extra time, just start picking up the chickens. Just pick them up. Also cleaned out enclosures for chinchillas, guinea pigs, rats. They had a big reptile room. I never really hung out in there other than the iguana. It's not that I didn't want to be in there. It's just that I never learned how to handle a snake. And I still don't know if I'm ever ready to handle, because they had like some pythons in there and things like that. I'm trying to think if there was any other weird animals. No, I think I covered it all, but it was mainly doing a lot of cleaning. If they didn't need me to clean, then they would have me volunteer for like kid events, and those were the ones I was not really a fan of.
Like, you are the ones that should be in cages.
Yeah, like they had playhouses, so I would occasionally like clean up all the toys and stuff from that kids would just leave and not put away. And but one was like they had like an art room, and I would have to help kids make art, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I
can't scratch you and have you roll over without it looking weird. So.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the place that I did volunteer at closed.
Okay.
So, but I also haven't done it in like a while. But it was one of my favorite activities. I would actually wake up early on Saturdays and Sundays and go for like, I would tell people, "Oh, I'll be here for 2 hours." 5 hours later.
So, okay, so there's two things that I guess follow-up questions was, so when you like tamed the angry goat, is that like still, because in my head I don't know, maybe I just misheard, like when you attended that party, were you like still like baby Hop, or was this like college Hop? And I'm like, you're like, oh man, and this was spurred.
I was older. Like I didn't. Okay. I was in college, but because it was my nephew's birthday party, but it was before I ever actually fully volunteered to kind of like understand the animals.
Yeah, and I got that. I just wasn't sure if it was like, if you were one of the kids and you're like, everyone was like terrorizing the goat, and then you came over and you're like, I'm Goat Whisperer.
Fun. Okay. Another funny story about that. So after I had that experience, I happened to go to Disney not too much later after that. And at Disney, they have Animal Kingdom, and they have a whole petting zoo area that's like the same kind of thing, barnyard animals. And I was hanging out with a goat, and I think the handlers named it like Optimus Prime or Megatron. Like they named them all after Transformers. And there was one, and he would not leave my side. He just liked being scratched and everything. And then other goats would come up, and the goat that liked me started chasing away the other goats. So then my friend started calling me the Goat Queen, because he was like, this is my friend. Nobody else can be friends with this human.
Sounds like a Megatron. So I guess the other question I was coming up with, because I remember when I was in elementary school, where they would have the person come in with all the animals and show the animals off to the kids, like, look at these things. I don't remember why, but they just were. And I don't know, it also reminds me of a video I watched this week where this guy was like getting ready to show like all the animals to the students, and then there's just sounded like there was a kid like screaming its head off, and it's a bird just in the cage. It didn't want to be in there, just freaking out. He's like, "Stop it! You're gonna get me in trouble." But like, if you weren't doing the work that you were doing now, and like, or streaming or all, well, I don't know. I know people. There's a streamer who does take care of animals and all that, but like, would that like was that even an option, like, or would that be like a dream job of like going around and like maybe not showing the animals off at schools, seeing how you expressed your joy, showing kids how to color, but like, I don't know, taking care like a wildlife kind of thing?
At a very young age, because I said like I used to watch Animal Channel and everything, I had considered the idea of like being a vet and things like that. But at a very young age, my dad was also like, if you're going to be a vet, are you prepared to put animals down when they're sick? I was like, oh, dream ruined. I'm not strong enough. I don't have that will. But I think after volunteering and stuff, I think as a kid, if I had, instead of trying to become a vet, instead try and become a zookeeper, I think that would have been more a line of what I'm interested in. Where like, yeah, it would be great to take care of animals and things, but I think I'm more interested in that like personal relationship that you can build with animals. So I know one of my dream vacations, if I have enough money, is to try to go to Australia to their zoo and do every animal experience that you can. If I remember correctly, there's like the touristy ones that everyone would do, like hold a koala. But I think they also have ones where you can hang out with wombats. Fun fact about wombats.
This is cool.
Yeah. 2 fun facts about wombats. 1, they poop cubes. And then they their butts are like hard as doors and you can knock on their butts.
I do remember that the Kratz brothers talked about that.
Yeah. I used to watch so much of them
poop.
and Zubumafu. And then
Bad poop.
and I've also, going on vacations, I've also kind of picked things where I can interact with the animals. There was a rescue center in one area. I forget. I think it was in Mexico.
Right. I saw the wombat poop. I'm like, oh,
it is cute.
Minecraft.
But there was one of those like marine mammal rescue areas in Mexico, I think. And at first I was kind of wary of it because some of them, you know, like SeaWorld says they rescue them, but they're kind of more for show. Mm-hmm. But in this one, they were kind of like, the area that they had the animals in were kind of like half in the ocean, and they were just gated off so that predators and things couldn't get to them. But and they claimed that they like eventually would set them into the wild, like for the dolphins and things. But out of the animals to swim with, I chose to swim with manatees. Favorite experience ever. They are my spirit animal. If I could have one as a pet and be reasonable about it, I would pick them to have as a pet.
Just like lazily drifting in the water.
Yeah.
Just like, going out to the pool. That's the manatee enclosure. I know.
No, they were very sweet, and they had these little fun things you could do, and they enjoyed being scratched and eating lettuce. So it's like a giant sea rabbit, I guess.
Just without any fur. All right. Well, that's all my follow-up questions and questions about animals.
I know, I feel like I talked a lot about animals.
That's all good. I talked a lot about pizza.
All right, so my final question for you. I know you've mentioned Jim Henson's work a lot. Who would you say are some of your biggest inspirations creatively? I'm assuming Jim Henson's one of those.
Yeah, probably now that I'm thinking about it. I never thought of it that way, but looking at his stuff, like, for sure. So, I guess, I don't know, my brain kind of puts them into different kind of, like, categories, I guess, of just kind of different content stuff. So, like, the guy that I mentioned earlier, Old Man Willikers or Rob, like, he was a big influence of mine of just how he did content differently, and it inspired, like, kind of how I like to do, or at least want to try to get to streaming and all that stuff. And so he was a big influence. But then I guess just of other stuff I've read, or just looked at, I guess Jim Henson would be one, because I don't know, that guy just I feel like he looks at things and then what he makes is different. It's just like, I don't know, just looking at the Monster Factory or whatever he called, where he made the Muppets. It's just like, how, like you have your like uh Sesame Street Muppets, and they're like cute animal looking things and like nice, kind, soft looking animal creature monster things. And then like you take a step over, you're hanging out with David Bowie, and there's like puppets there that have warts and bug-eyed, and they're like, we're gonna eat your kid. It's just like, I don't know. And then just looking at all this other work, I guess yeah, that would be an inspiration. I don't know, this is a difficult question for me, because it's like, it's one of those things I don't really think about. It's just more like, there's like, I guess specific people. I guess I get inspiration by like, I don't know, I guess just like certain things, not like a whole totality of people's work. Like Neil Gaiman, who's a writer. I haven't read all his stuff, but like one of the comic series that he wrote was Sandman, and that was just way different. And so I guess like the people that just do crazy out there kind of things is where I find a lot of inspiration from.
So you'd say more like pieces of work than actual like people.
Yeah. So I'm gonna butcher his name because I forgot it. But there's an artist out there. Sorry guys, I'm gonna type real quick. Um, who was the artist? I think that's his name. Oh no, but it brought it up. Tradmore. Uh, he he illustrated this comic series called Luther Strode. Make sure I'm pronouncing it right. Yeah, Strode, which is like this whole kind of play off of kind of like 80s, like over like like it's just like, it's super bloody, like a bunch of muscle dudes, but it's like the art in it is super super clean. And he took that into other things as well, where I remember to this day, I read this like 5-6 years ago, and I remember to this day this panel where like, so when you look at a comic book, there you have your different panels and stuff, and then depending on how people show that is like, normally you got your square, and then you kind of go to your left, and that's kind of how it was in like the golden and silver age. And then as we started getting into like, I don't know what age it is now, but like the modern and kind of what we would call postmodern to whatever age we're in now, probably digital, that box has become different, and to where the box might be a whole page, it might be a small box, but people are popping out of it. uh and there's all that, but like Tradmore did like this really cool thing where there's a conversation happening of these two characters walking down a hallway after they were attacked, and it starts off with where they kind of killed this person, and it's like you're looking, like they cut off that, like the hat top the of the roof, like one of those playhouses where you can like take off the roof and look down into it. It's like that, like where you're looking down into there and you can see them moving in there. And then if you follow to the bottom of the page, there's another panel where it shows, like if you follow it, they get to the end, and on the other side of the door while they're talking is like all these like armed forces like getting ready to bust down in there. But you can, if when you look at the whole page, you can see it all, but then you can follow it through. And he did that in like a few different comics that I thought was really cool. Okay, now the juices are going, because now I'm remembering other people. So like, it's actually just like a lot of, I read a lot of comics, and I have a lot of comic collections, so there's a lot of inspiration stuff with that. So like Tradmore is an artist that I really like. Rick Remender is another artist, but I'm forgetting who wrote this series but it's called Black Science, and it's all about it's pretty much about time, not time travel, but like um, parallel universes, because they make this machine that's able to go into different universes, and like as they well, actually that's a spoiler for later, but it's it's pretty interesting where like they can't control it. It's like Quantum Leap a little bit, where they can't control it because someone broke the machine, and so they're trying to get to a universe where the technology is similar enough to their world so they can kind of fix the machine and control it a little bit more. But then there's like people that like are showing up, or like they go missing from, because if you're not there back, if you're not back at the machine at a certain time, like you'll be left. The machine won't wait for you. And so it's interesting. They get to a part where like America as we know it never existed, and World War II is happening, and it's Nazis fighting super like these they're fighting like Native Americans, but the Native Americans are all like robo like souped up people, and they have like all this like robot technology, but they still have like all this Native American like ground like beliefs and stuff that they're doing, and they're like, what are we doing? Like, we don't know what to do, because like it's traditional Nazis, but then it's Native Americans that are like have like robot blasters and they're just like, and they're all battling, and it's just like, what is going on? So there it's really cool, just some of the stuff that goes on in there. um and then I guess another side that's a lot of inspiration for me is there's a few podcasts that I take inspiration from, where one of them oh, is one of the things I really like to listen to is tabletop playing podcasts. And um it's definitely one of those things where like I don't know, I like to listen. That's how I learn a lot of rule sets. Like, so that's how I kind of learned Pathfinders, listening to a podcast. And same with Call of Cthulhu and other stuff. But there's two that really stick out to me. One is the Glass Cannon Network, and they showed me that you can take material, like they were playing through an adventure path, which if people aren't familiar with Pathfinder, adventure path is normally 6 books that people can go through on an adventure, like and it takes you through different settings, and you go through and explore them. And the the DM of that, um, Troy LaValle, he was able to take that and then interweave like all these other things, like in the characters' backstories and all that stuff, while continuing this official adventure path story going. And like the creativity and voices, and just kind of how like just different things, I don't know, was also a big inspiration for me. And so I listened to kind of what their views of what they think, what makes a good like podcast, and what also makes a good like just content in general, and just listen to all of them. They're the only people I'm subscribed to on Patreon because I like their stuff so much. But it's I don't know, I learn a lot and get a lot of inspiration from them. And then storytelling, which these guys are actually unfortunately their podcasts don't go anymore, but they also were part of a Twitch channel called Encounter Roleplay. And it's they play an assortment of things. I listen to them play Call of Cthulhu and 5th edition, a very loose version of 5th edition, and probably a real loose version of Call of Cthulhu, where all they do is pretty much role play. So they're like, if you can role play yourself out of a situation and it works, they'll go with it. And so like cooperative storytelling is something that I thought was really cool, just learning from there. So I guess I guess there's not like one single person, but it's like an assortment of different phases of people's work that I interacted with, that I'm like, okay, this is cool, what can I learn from it? And like honestly, like if there's a lot of like just other streamers that like I'll watch, and I'll be like, I'll get inspired, not to do exactly what they're doing, but to at least dip my toe in and explore. And it's just like, I don't know, I'm definitely one of those people. I'm like, I want to try it myself before I write it off. Most of the time, normally I was like, normally there's times where I'm like, yeah, there's stuff I just know from history I'm not going to enjoy this game type or story because I don't stick with it long enough. But yeah, it's definitely like I like to give anything a shot. And so there's like, I love indie games, and indie games are just, they're, I don't know, I just think they're amazing because they need to find a reason for people to buy their game because they're not owned by fill in the blank company, and it's not a AAA game. And so normally, like Sayonara Wild Hearts is an amazing game. It's super simple. You're on a rail, moving back and forth, trying to collect things and dodge other things so you don't die, and you have amazing music. And it's definitely one of those things. I won't go into it. It's on YouTube where I explain why this game is super cool if you weren't in the stream. So but yeah, like stuff like that, it's just like, it won't inspire me like, how I'm gonna go create a video game or music or all this other stuff, but it's like, it inspires me to create better. Like that, I think that's what it is, where it's all these inspirations. It doesn't really inspire me to do a specific thing, but it inspires me to create better and like push myself further and not just get used to sitting in one spot. I'm going to also hydrate.
No, it makes sense what you said, and I can see that. Yeah, like when I asked the question itself is a very vague and broad question, but no, I do think it's a better way to look at it, where it's not just like people's bodies of work, just bodies of work in general that can inspire you. And if you like it enough, then you end up researching the person more to see if other work of theirs is something that you're interested in.
Yeah, like that's honestly like when I did a lot more comic stuff on my channel, people are like, well, how do I know if this is a good comic? And I'm like, okay, well, what's a comic that you do like? And they'll name whatever. I was like, okay, find out who wrote that comic, and then go find other things they wrote, and see if you like that stuff. Like normally, like stuff like X-Men or Spider-Man or whatever, they're written by multiple different people, and so one story arc you might really like while the other story arc you don't. And it's been a while, so I'm trying to remember names, but I'm blanking. But there's like Grant Morrison. He's like a classic. Is that the guy who wrote Black Desert? I don't know. Not Black Desert. Blank Science. Oh well, it doesn't matter. But Grant Morrison, I know he wrote a lot of Wolverine stuff and like did a lot of Marvel work. But like his stuff is kind of different, and I don't know. There's just that's what I would explain. There's your advice for people who want to get into comics but don't know where to start. Like honestly, if you remember one like a comic book that you read and you're like, I really like this, look up the writers and then go look up what else they wrote. Or if you like the art, look up the artist and look at what else they drew. I don't know. I honestly been thinking about bringing back comic section to YouTube. So, not necessarily. We're not talking about all about comics. We're talking about in general. We're interviewing each other.
Yeah, yeah. Does that kind of wrap up your general inspirations and things?
Yeah. Unless there's any follow-up things.
No, I think I'm good. I think you covered everything and beyond that.
All right. So then, my last question. I also realized our questions is like, I don't know. It's just funny where it's just like I pick out all my questions picked out very like kind of things like I noticed this about Hop, and then it's like I feel like yours is like the deep questions like, so what's your inspiration? How'd you do this? I'm like, oh.
I mean, they are kind of still catered to you though, because like, you know, Pizza King is a very specific thing to your channel, and then Charity Palooza, I mean, that could have just been on my mind since, you know, but you did just have it.
Yeah, charity pool is, I could understand that. So actually, this would tie into, I guess, the first event that me and you met in person for, and it's actually the only event. Which the funny thing is, we've actually been in the same location at other events. We just didn't know or see each other. So,
They're
PAX
bigger.
East.
Yeah. They're big boys.
Yes. So my question is, why did I close my file? There it is. That's not the question. Okay, so my question is, what was the board game that started you down the path of being a collector of all board games?
All right.
And then I guess part two is what style of board games, or what are board games that you're currently like interested in collecting?
All right. So I honestly, I can't call myself a collector as much as I used to. My buying for board games has lessened quite a bit, and I think it's because now I kind of do the thing where I try and buy as much as possible from the convention, so that I'm not just like buying and buying and buying throughout the year. Like I have a coworker who also goes, and he's like, "This is my budget. What's yours?" I'm like, "Oh, mine's like 300 to 500." He's like, "Excuse me?" I was like, "Yeah, I don't buy games anywhere in the other time of the year. I don't want to have to worry about sales and release dates. If it's at PAX, I'm just gonna grab it, and it's just gonna be in my library, and I'll play it." But I want to say like I remember back in the days where I was starting to kind of like slowly get into the hobby. We started playing things like, I remember playing Risk and being very frustrated. Not one, I'm not tactically minded. I'm not very good at that kind of stuff, but I remember they have a ruling where even if you have less units, if you still technically roll higher than the other person, then your unit doesn't die. So I had like one unit alone on Madagascar, and I would keep rolling sixes. And the guy I was going against was like, "Just let me have Africa. Just let me have it." And I'm like, "I'm trying to let you, but he won't die. He won't die. I want to be out of the game." He was one of my last units.
It's that guy that didn't hear that the war ended. He's like, "This is mine."
This is my island. We started making jokes about I have mutant lemurs fighting for my cause or something like that, something really ridiculous. But yeah, so I remember that, and I think I transitioned into Risk. I want to say my first like modern board game that I remembered buying what might have been Arkham Horror. And that's a Cthulhu based game where it's a co-op and you're all working together and try and like manage the mysteries and stuff. And then after that, I just kind of just started buying a bunch. Like after that, I remember getting Pandemic, and then I remember getting Pathfinder adventure card game and so forth. And I don't know, I started just getting a bunch of games all at once, and then but the two most played from early on in my hobby were like Arkham Horror, to which for I think it's second edition, which I think I own all of the expansions and mini expansions for the second edition. And there's a third edition now. I haven't gotten all this stuff for that, but Arkham Horror and then eventually Betrayal became the two most played games like in my game group. And
Betrayal's great.
It is a good time.
We're not allowed to talk about what happened.
Yeah, but I think, and then I remember getting other small games like Love Letter and Flux and all those kinds of things. I want to say, if I had to cite it correctly, I could probably check my Instagram for when I started taking board game pictures, but I'd probably guess that Arkham Horror was like my gateway game. And then, but overall, as far as my general games that I do like a lot, I know my favorite mechanic in a board game is like a deck builder. So like games like Clank, Legendary, and there's a handful of others that I really like, but I really love that mechanic and that playstyle. My favorite like 1v1 game is Star Realms. So it's very comfortable for me to be able to go back into that, which is kind of like Strider. At first, I didn't know anything about TFT and I didn't have any interest because I was like, it's League of Legends, I don't want it. But Strider was like, it's a deck building game as a video game. I was like, oh, is it now? And then, yeah, it is. 100% is.
Has arisen.
And as far as like what I've been playing more so lately, Strider and I really enjoy playing games that are very hard survival type of games. There's I don't want to call them an indie board game company, but they almost feel like an indie board game company. Interestingly enough, the owner of the I think he's the owner, or just one of the major investors. He's from like the Philadelphia region, and we happen to like get to know him at PAX East, and then we've seen him at multiple PAX East, multiple PAX Unplugged, and they kind of like publish some little like one-off like interesting games. They have their biggest one that did well on Kickstarter. I think the first one that did really well is Maximum Apocalypse, I think it's called. You have like you have limited resources, limited actions, you're flipping tiles, you're fighting monsters of all types, and they have different expansions. Like they have a kaiju deck, they have a zombie deck, they have an alien deck in it that you can mix into the game. And so we enjoy that game, and they also released like he didn't design it, but he had a friend design it, and he released it under his company called Set a Watch, where you have to manage fighting monsters, making camp, making sure there's enough food, fire, and all those kinds of things. But my favorite one that I'm waiting to cut, filled by Kickstarter, is called one of his designers made a match 3 game into a board game, and then kind of mixed it with chess and some other elements. So I'm excited for that to get finally released. But no, I think overall, like, hard survival is really fun for us. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. With COVID and everything, I haven't really had a lot of time to, like, plan game groups because, having people over is like, oh no, very bad.
Yeah. I know there's a game that I got at PAX Unplugged that I want to play, but it's the same thing. It's a Dice Throne.
Yeah, I do have a copy of that. I played that with my brother before.
So, and they just came out with like a dungeon crawler thing. I don't know. I want to play it, but I haven't been able to. I'm like, So.
Yeah, for a while I was very much in the boat of all the legacy, like the legacy games, and I was like getting into that. And then it felt like everybody came out with a legacy game, and then I got really bored of the concept of it. I think the highest rated one is still Pandemic Legacy that I haven't had a chance to play yet.
Yeah.
Me and my group finished the Betrayal Legacy game. But like One Night Ultimate Werewolf also came out with one, but it requires like 12 plus players. I'm like, no.
Goodness.
Don't know that many people.
That's something. So, to go a little bit off topic, it's really. I don't know if I mentioned it to you or if it was a conversation that Civil and I had, but about doing like a once a month legacy game.
Okay.
That ended like everything, and I was like, man, Pandemic would be real good. I'm really glad we didn't go with that idea this year.
Yeah, the timing would have been ooh.
It would have been either real good or real bad, depending on how that game went. But no, that's something I would love to do, is find a legacy thing and stream it, because Gloomhaven is kind of a legacy style game.
It is. You just have to be careful because there is, I think, a Gloomhaven game on Steam, but the Gloomhaven is like a weird, like, kind of CRPG in the universe. So you'll just have to double check that you don't actually buy that instead of the board game. And I know there's a second one out it's
Frosthaven.
Yeah, Frosthaven.
Yeah. I don't know. It is one of those things where I'm like, man, that would be something I think that would be really cool. And then just like, I don't know, whatever day is like, okay, here we go. We're going to continue stories like once a month. And so if there's only 12 sessions, I don't know. Well, everyone, welcome to Behind the Scenes, where how DPayne shares his ideas to all of his friends. Just like, it would be cool if we did this. And we'll see if it actually ever sees the light of day. So, but yeah. So I guess another question, did you ever get that magnet board game thing, fast food thing that you were looking for?
Oh yeah, I do have
I forgot what
Food Chain Magnate. I've played like the miniature versions of it, like the introductory versions. They have different ways to suggest you to get started into the game. And I've played it a few times, messing up rules here and there, but that's why they tell you not to play the full game yet. I haven't sat down to play a full game of it, though, because it's a big boy, it's a long play time. But one game that I forgot to mention, one game style I forgot to mention is, I don't remember what it's called exactly, But we did get another one from that same area in PAX Unplugged called the Magnificent. It's like a circus one, but you have a lot of like fiddly bits to deal with where you're like managing your different ways to get points. And I just like watching people go about different strategies to all like win in their own way. And I forget if there's like an actual good genre name for it, but like one time we were playing, Strider was going for a certain type of victory, I was going for another type of victory, and we were kind of like playing around each other, trying to pay attention to what each other was doing to make sure we got what we wanted. But then in the end, like our points weren't very far off, even though we weren't playing the same exact like motivations for points.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, like you could either have the most acts, you could have the best like circus tents. Like there's a lot of ways for you to get points. And there's also secret objectives, if I remember correctly.
It sounds like this Viking game that I have that I haven't been able to play, where it's like you collect resources.
Yeah, worker placement I think is one of the categories of it. Are you thinking of
all the meeples?
Yeah.
I don't know. I would have to get up and look it up.
Tribes of Midgard?
That sounds right.
Or is that the video game? Because there's also a Viking video game that I
don't know. I just really like Vikings. So, but yeah, no. Yeah, I don't know. I do know that if PAX South Unplugged, there we go, that's the one I'm looking for, happens again, I wanna play that space alien game that you guys were playing, because I'm like, this looks really cool. But I came too late. I'm like,
I do know, like, I don't know. I feel like last year they had already sold the tickets by now, and I'm not confident that it's going to be able to happen this year.
We'll have a digital one. That's what we'll do. The weekend that it was supposed to happen, we'll just show off. Like, I know PAX is going to show off their own stream thing. We'll just every night have our own board game thing. Oh, man. But yeah, that's all my questions. Unless there's anyone that you want to... that you feel like you didn't get anything completely out.
No, I think we interviewed each other well, and we both took more time than I expected.
Pointless Discourse Con? Oh man, that would be when we set up the Patreon and we make money. Oh, but that would fulfill the dream of us actually getting a stage.
Yes, for all our random live stage show ideas.
We have one where we do all of them. Like, okay, we did them. We have a year to think of another one. Yep, Pointless Con. It's all our streamer friends podcasts joining together for Pointless Con.
Yeah, but looking at the time, we might just have time for just the Enneagram stuff.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to take as long as the quiz. You know what? Do we still have that quiz saved? Because while we're taking this, we could post it in chat and see if people wanted to take them.
Oh, we're taking it? I thought we...
No. We already took it.
Okay.
If people in chat wanted to take it.
Oh, yes. So they can understand.
Yeah. I don't think... Okay, so guys, for the quizzes that we're doing today, we are... I don't have it. Do you have it easily?
I have the sheet up.
Yeah,
do you have the new one?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
The one that has the...
Hold on, I might be able to find it real quick.
Okay, so while he looks for that, so basically we did do something different. We did mention kind of in the beginning we were going to talk about like personality tests we took. I know usually we kind of round out after our talking points, kind of like a quiz related to the topic. This time we actually did homework and took the quizzes ahead of time because we were worried we would, spend too much time if we try to do it live to complete these. The first one is the one DPayne suggested. It's the Enneagram
Test.
Yeah.
So,
Numbers.
Yes. If you guys want to take it, I will explain briefly what this is. So there's 9 numbers that are split into 3 different triads, and they each line up with kind of how they, like their stress points. So I think 8 through 1 is anger, 2 through 4 is mine. No, gut. I'm messing up. And then one of them's mine and one of them's gut. And it's pretty much like it's just how different, like people, how they line up with different like how their emotions, how they deal with stress and all that. And then normally you'll get two numbers. One is your main one, and then you'll have a wing number, which kind of fleshes out that personality a little bit more. Um, and I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting. It was a little bit different than Myers-Briggs. Um, so, well, Hub, since you asked the first question, do you wanna share what your numbers were?
Sure. So we took a couple different versions of this test. The first one was kind of more detailed, but then they wanted money, and they didn't really offer, from what I could tell, the wing number. But I was able to kind of guess my wing number based on the descriptions of the numbers that I kind of looked up on my own after the fact. So I had two numbers at first that were both equal percentages according to the quiz, and then they assigned me the number 5 as my main,
All right.
and 6 is my wing according to the one that you just sent out.
So I was close. 6 was your wing, so I guess technically when I guessed 6, it was partially right. Yeah. So what did they say about your numbers? Do you remember?
So type 5 is described as the investigator. 5 seek understanding and knowledge and are more comfortable with data than people.
And animals.
uh,
Yeah. And so like so that's what like the core of it means, but then like depending on the wing number, it depend like that helps fulfill like a little bit more of that. So like I don't know if it said what a 6 was for you.
um, let's see. Those with. I thought I copied and pasted it, but I can't find it off the top of my head. But if I read 6 as a whole, the general 6 is the skeptic, who are preoccupied with security, seek safety, and like to be prepared for problems. Which I like. At first, I was like, that doesn't seem like me. But 4 is like very emotional. Yeah, they said 4 is expressive.
4 is super emotional.
Yeah, 4 is expressive, dramatic, self-absorbed, and temperamental. It's like, that ain't me. And this other thing for 6 is saying that they're engaging, responsible, anxious, and suspicious. And I was like, all right, I can see where I can have some of those tendencies.
Yeah. The way I heard 6 is explained is that they're very loyal to people, and so they are. So like pretty much they are skeptic and wondering about that, and it's more of just like when it comes to authority, like there's two different ways they can react, where it's just like one, they're like, okay, I'm skeptic of your rules, but I'm going to trust you and follow you. And then it's like the other one is like, I'm like in my distrust and trying to prove you wrong or whatever. It's something weird like that, where it's like there's two different ways they can go through.
Mm-hmm.
But they're very loyal people who want to like I guess if I'm remembering correctly, help not feed into, but it's just like help support people, help come alongside and build together. And like their big thing is just, if with a 6, if you're able to come to like if someone gains your trust, like you're gonna be with them for a while and a long time, and it's like you're not going to just like discredit them right away. And then the 5 would be your core. So it's just like the funny thing about the 5 is that they tend to close away their emotions, and and like that's one of the things. But when they're a 5 with a 6 wing, if I'm remembering it correctly, they're more personable, and they're I don't think that part of being a skeptic and mistrusting and all those other negative attributes are as strong. But like the wing is like you at your best. So it's just you have these like emotional things where it's like you investigate and all this stuff, and you want to learn all these different things, but at the same time you're still there and like supporting and helping build like together, if I'm explaining it.
I can kind of see what you're getting at. Yeah, no, but like the things I read about 5 being my core are definitely related to, though, where they can't like at their worst they can be secretive, or they can isolate themselves to make themselves feel more comfortable.
So
I can see it.
Go ahead. Well, did this line up at all with the Myers-Briggs? I figure that's just how we can bring it
I
in.
think it's I think it does a little bit, and like the thing is like I said, like they seem to give me like two numbers that were really close. Looking at it now from my screenshot, it's actually a 98% match with a 5 and a 98% match with a 9. But the survey came back and was like, "You're a 5." I was like, "How do you know?" But yeah. So like looking at the two, like I tried reading into the 9 where what does it say? It's that you're the peacemaker, low profile, let other people set the agenda, which I can see, but it's like I feel like that doesn't explain me as well as the 5 does. But with the Myers-Briggs, I do have a thing where, fun fact, when I took it again, I actually switched personality types the first time I took it, and I took it again and I switched back to what I was before. I was like an ISTP, which I feel like describes a lot of me, but then when I took it again, I got ISTJ. And my P and my J will flip-flop between being plus or minus 50% on one of the sides for P or J. So I guess I can see that's why they think I could be two different Enneagram numbers.
Wait, what was yours again?
TP. ISTP is the virtuoso, who's that very hands-on thinking type of person. Okay. And then there's ISTJ, which I think is the logistician, who's kind of like, it's like a pretty common personality if I remember right. The second time I took it, when I was curious that I changed personality types, my prospecting, which is like the P for the P and J, is like 56%. My judging was 44%. So I guess like on a given day, I could easily slip between the two. And reading them, I could see where I could slip. Like I have portions from both. And I guess I could see that if I looked at the 5 and 9s, where the virtuoso is very much into like thinking, experiencing, trying, learning, which I think fits with a 5 who is very like, they seem very intellectual, knowledge driven, not so much emotion driven.
Yeah. Wicked smart.
I'm 99% introverted.
I'm 89%. Yeah, I will always be an I.
So then what did your numbers come out to be?
So when I first took this quiz, the Enneagram quiz, the number I got, some people were like, I don't see it. Other people said, I do see it. Was an 8, which 8, they're like your natural born leaders. And the big thing with 8s is that they don't necessarily need to be in charge. You can't tell them what to do.
Oh, okay. I can see that.
They demand their freedom pretty much over anything. And it's like, that's where it really tied in home, because I'm just like, I don't necessarily need to be the leader, but good luck trying to tell me to do X that I have to. And my wing number is a 9, actually. So, okay. Which 9s are interesting because they're like the wild card. The 9s, their whole thing is that they can go and like connect with 9s can go and like connect with every group pretty much, like, because they can see the point of view from everybody. And so it's really interesting because 8s are known like for coming off like super strong and like being super abrasive with their ideas and stuff, which I don't know. I'll let other people say that, not in my presence. But but they're very much like, 8s are very much like your creative thinkers and like building, like they come up with a bunch of ideas and help like kind of move towards them, while 9s they're able to tie in. So normally an 8 with a 9 are a little bit better with people. So,
it balances out the
yeah. So and they're a little bit more sympathetic towards others. So there's that, which this goes with my personality, the Myers-Briggs thing, which is an INTP.
INTP.
Or can go with INTJ. Like we are the same with our J's and our P's, where they flip back and forth. But yeah, this one is I don't even pronounce this. Logician.
A logician.
Logician. It's a logic magician. Which is really, it always cracks me up because the thing that I always remember about them is that they're like 3% of the population.
Yeah, I just saw that scrolling through the profile for it.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I'll just read what it says because like my brain's like, but yeah, they like the first line in there. It says like they're flexible thinkers enjoy taking unconventional approach. Oh my gosh, this is way too real. To many aspects of life, they often seek out unlikely paths, mixing willingness to experiment with personal creativity. And this is why I will never win in TFT.
I guess I should read so you read what the first sentence for yours?
Yeah.
I guess I should be fair and read the first sentence for mine. Virtuosos love to explore with their hands and their eyes, touching and examining the world around them with cool rationalism and spirited curiosity. People with this personality type are natural makers, moving from project to project, building the useful and the superfluous for the fun of it, and learning from the environment as they go.
Yeah. I didn't really read through all. I never actually read through this all.
I kind of pick up bits and pieces. Sometimes when people, people are starting to get to know me, I know I have some weird, like with the 5, I can isolate and I can pick and choose which feelings I feel like feeling that day. And so the strengths and weaknesses of the virtuoso, I'll just send that to people. If they're like, are you okay? I'm like, this is just how I am. Because, what is it? The thing that always makes me laugh is in the relationship section, they say that for a virtuoso, it can be like trying to nail Jell-O to a tree. Because with virtuosos, they have a tendency where they can seem very calm and fine. And then if something happens, then suddenly everything's an 11 and nothing's fine and nothing's okay. So, so sometimes, I just hit that point where my battery needs to be recharged and I'm just like, it's not you. It's not just you. There's just a lot.
It's boiling over. I'm reading through my they only have romantic relationships on here. Let's see, friendship. Okay, whatever. I'm scrolling through. Isn't there a little blurb of what this all means? Oh wait, I remember this one because it says when it comes to conflict, there's a certain willful ignorance for logicians as they set aside their partner's feelings and their own for far too long. And it's just a picture of this dude super pissed off with flowers and a woman just sitting there staring at an Iron Man thing making it.
I think, yeah, if you go to the right one where there is friendships.
Oh, there we go. One more. Friendships. Oh man, there's a lot of reading.
Yeah, one of my headlines is maybe, but not today. A lot of this comes down to virtuosos simply not wanting to be bound to any particular person or activity. I don't have commitment issues, you do.
Shut your mouth. Mine is be slow to fall into friendships. Unless there's a natural affinity for this intellectual style, few have the patience to try to penetrate their shields, and logicians are left with a naturally small circle of good friends. Oh man, we are just naturally guys. The people that host this podcast are just naturally unsocial, and we're social with each other because we understand.
We understand each other, but
we done talking.
I have a bottom headline too. That's weird. It says, I never set out to be weird, and yet it says virtuosos are unusually popular almost in spite of themselves. Oh, I feel it. Their open-mindedness, interesting hobbies, and relaxed attitude are attractive to a remarkably broad range of personality types. It's like, oh, that's why everyone thinks I'm an extrovert. I'm just here.
Yeah, well, that's the fun thing about extrovert and introvert. It just kind of means how you recharge your batteries.
Mm-hmm. That's how I try to explain it to people. I remember one person, he was just he didn't know how to understand it, so we tried to explain it from a recharge battery thing, but instead of listening, he kept repeating, so you think people are stupid. No, it's, I mean, I can't say that everyone's not stupid, but that's not why we are the way we are.
Well, you're acting real stupid right now, buddy.
It's like, oh, so you think people are annoying and not stupid. It's like, while there are some annoying people out there, that's not what makes us an actual introvert.
Yeah, I don't know, like, honestly, I went out to breakfast with my brothers today, and they're both extroverted, talking and all this stuff, and I'm sitting there just like, we're done. Oh my goodness. And I'm sitting there and I'm like looking at the clock, and I'm like, okay, well, I gotta go now because I get groceries because I got podcast.
Oh, a way out. Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of reading.
Yeah. No, I just find these interesting and kind of fun because it's one of those things where I find it almost impossible on how to properly describe myself. But these surveys and these quizzes seem to be able to take bits and pieces. Like, I did read the one that I kind of flip-flop between. I did take a couple notes of where I can see where I could fall into that.
Yeah.
Like, the other personality type, the ISTP that I fall into, it says that they're very fact-driven. So before they make any decisions, they'll sit and think through things and decide on things. And they don't like when people are indecisive. So, yeah. They also don't like it if they're in a meeting and things aren't to the point. I'm like, oh, I do hate that.
Oh my goodness. That's also a 5. Because they're like, in the book they were saying like, yeah, a 5 doesn't go to a meeting unless you, like, if you let them know when it's going to start, when they're going to get out, and the whole plan, and if we go over, they're going to hate you for it.
Yeah, it also says things that, like, I prefer, the other personality type prefers autonomy and self-sufficiency over relying on other people. I'm like, yeah, I'm very much like that. And one of the weaknesses that I made a note of is they often unreasonably blame themselves. I'm like, oh, this is me. This is also me. But I feel like the virtuoso one, with the way that I learn and think and interact with my environment, is how I am. And then it sounds like the 5 and this logistician are kind of more of how I feel.
Yeah, like the other side of one that I keep getting mixed up with is the INTJ. Make sure I'm reading that right. Yeah. INTJ. Okay, I just had to reread it, which is also like, it's kind of this very similar thing where their whole, just reading the first line, they're like, they're thoughtful tacticians, love perfecting the details of life, applying creativity and rationality to everything they do. Their inner world is a private but complex one. Which also, I just find it funny how the two personality types that I am are like this extreme minority of both, because the architect on this is 0.8% of a person of whatever they are.
Mm-hmm.
But their whole thing is like, just in the that was for logistician, but yeah, it's just very interesting, like the whole judging and prospecting, where it, depending on the day, goes back and forth. So it's I don't know, it's one of those things where it's, I don't know, they're interesting, but it's good to build. Like, the Enneagram, it's definitely one of those things where, like, I learned about it and it's interesting, but like, I don't know, I honestly need to learn a little bit more about it to explain it to people. It's just, I find it interesting. And Myers-Briggs, it's like, they're two different sides. They're explaining the same thing from two different viewpoints, where the Myers-Briggs is looking at it through like a psychology lens, and if I'm remembering that right, and like studies and all that, while the Enneagram is more like behaviors and like emotionally tied, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that from the way that they're describing, because they, like, it feels like Myers-Briggs kind of takes these 4 like areas and tries to associate you with kind of how you think, while the Enneagram is more how you react, and like the way that they describe things are more like social situations rather than just how your brain's trying to put pieces together.
And I would not be able to answer that question if Myers-Briggs has origins in Jung's archetypes. I don't know. It's just they're DPayne observations. But yeah, that's kind of it.
Yeah, I think we covered everything, and we actually finished within, well, I don't know. We'll see when we edit. I feel like it doesn't matter how I feel. I feel like the episodes are always long.
I think we're back in our normal wheelhouse of an hour and a half. Let's see. So, well, you want initiative. So wait, now I forget the rules. Who gets to roll?
I think, is it the winner that gets to roll?
I don't remember. Does anyone remember?
Let's just do winner rolls from here on out then. If we rewrite the rules, we just have to stick to the new rules that we write.
We're going to mix them up every time. All right, go ahead.
I rolled a 2 on my D10 for the next topic.
Oh, man. So that is tabletop games to live in.
Versus alien movies.
Versus alien movies.
Yes. So anyone who, anyone newer who isn't familiar, what we just did there is we rolled a die to help us pick from our table of topics. We should start calling it that. Table of topics. And then from there, you guys have the opportunity to go to our Twitter, twitter.com/pointlessdisco, and vote for either alien movies or tabletop games to live in as our next topic as we go back finally into more of our traditional podcast format where we talk about our burst? Well, I guess that's a way to say best and worst at the same time.
Our burst topics.
Our burst items in each topic.
Yep. And and that will be up shortly after the podcast. We finish recording. We just you know what will also be fun to do, guys? I don't know what happened yesterday, but like I was telling Hop, a whole bunch of randos listened to the recording thing, and we are thanking you if you made it this far. You know, we're just say the countries. You know, we could say the states for America, and then all the other ones, like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Washington, Ohio. You listeners in there, in Germany, in Land Berlin, and Thurgina. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry, Germany.
Yeah, maybe just say the countries after this because we can't read names.
Canada, which is British Columbia and New Brunswick. I could read them. Ireland, which I don't know how but there's maybe at least one person in Ireland. We have someone in Spain. Oh, and there's this one in Azerbaijan. Don't know how to pronounce that name. It's spelled Azerbaijan. Guy, I don't know, or girl. I don't know how to pronounce your country's name, but we thank you.
Yes, if you want to send us an angrily worded DM on Twitter on how to say it, we will appreciate it.
Not just joking. Oh, yes, we will appreciate it, and I will attempt to learn it.
Yes, but yeah, thank you guys all for listening all to the recorded versions. Again, if you would like to participate in kind of like the live studio audience that we hinted at in the beginning, we do the streamed versions of these podcasts Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Otherwise, yeah, you can listen to us on any of the major streaming platforms.
Yeah, and next week we'll be back. Be back into a normal flow of things. I'm trying to think if there's anything we want to say. I know we mentioned the twitter.com/pointlessdisco. And we're also people that are unfamiliar. Hop and I also stream. Twitch.com/our names. It's down in the description. I don't know. There probably is now a Twitch channel called Our Names, and I just gave them free promo. If you go there and it's an actual channel, just write in there, hey, Pointless Disco brought me here. Pointless Discourse brought me here. So, okay. But yeah, that is it. I hope you all have a good day. Toodles.